So my blood sugar, I am about almost 2 hours post meal, and I'm sitting at 130 and stable, so pretty darn good. I had actually kept a pretty stable line even after eating waffles for breakfast. Hi everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to day number 19 of Diabetes Awareness Month, November 19th, 2018. You are actually seeing me on the day of November 19th, 2018, so you're seeing me when I upload this video later. You've seen me what I look like and how well I am doing today. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for returning if you are a returning subscriber, but if not, please hit that subscribe button if you want to see more from me. For those of you that have just joined, I have been living with type 1 diabetes since July 22nd, 2018, so almost 4 months now, and today's question is going to be a little bit of a longer explanation. As you can see, I have a whiteboard behind me, but today we're going to talk about all the different complications that can result if we don't take care of diabetes. And this applies not only to type 1 diabetics, this also applies to type 2 diabetics, because all these complications result from high blood glucose. Now, like I said, the complications I'm going to be talking about today are the 3 major complications. But there are tons of other things I'm sure that can go wrong if you have diabetes and you do not take care of it. However, with that being said, just because these complications result from high blood sugars, it does not mean that if you have roller coaster blood sugars, that doesn't mean that you're going to have damage either. They do say high blood sugars can be just as damaging, but in addition to, if you're constantly running like 300, 400, and then you crash down into the 50s and go back up to that 300, 400 range all the time, they say that is just as damaging. So with that being said, let's jump in to today's video. So obviously, today's question is, what are some of the complications that can arise if diabetes is not properly managed, and have I had any complications from diabetes? So I'll answer that first. I do not have any complications from diabetes. I'm very lucky and blessed. I will explain more in my experience, my diagnosis story, but part of the reason why I almost died from diabetic ketoacidosis is because my kidneys weren't filtering quite right, but they had actually reversed that. They're back to normal now. When they had tested my kidney function about a month and a half ago, my kidneys are doing fine. But we will explain that a little bit later. So as of right now, I do not have any diabetes complications that I'm aware of. I've only been living with it for 4 months, and I've done my best to keep my blood sugars very, very well controlled. So hopefully I can delay or prevent a lot of blood sugar issues and delay and prevent a ton of different complications in the future. But the 3 major complications I'm going to jump into today are diabetic retinopathy, diabetic neuropathy, and diabetic nephropathy, which has to do with your kidneys. So I'm going to jump into retinopathy first because I have a little diagram here about that. So I'm going to explain kind of the diagram, and then I'm going to kind of go into depth about what kind of happens with each of these complications. Please note, I am not a medical professional. I have taken some anatomy courses, but just because I have done that doesn't mean I am someone you should turn to for treating or managing diabetic complications. Please talk to your healthcare provider about how to deal with these if you have any yourself. So if you look kind of at this diagram, I'm sorry if I'm not exactly looking at you. I'm trying to explain things and point things to you so they make sense. So if you're looking at this eye diagram, it's as if you're looking at the eye from a profile view. So if I turn my head this way, you're looking at it like this. So this is my front of my eye, this is the back of my eye. Obviously what's diagrammed here is what you can't exactly see, but you can see parts of it. So like your pupil, that's the black part of your eye that, constricts and dilates to let light in. The iris is the colored part of your eye. The sclera is the white of your eye. So that's the front part. Now inside your eye it's a big ball, but it's full of this kind of jelly-like gooey substance called the vitreous humor. That's right in the middle, and that's what kind of gives your eye that round, full shape. And then if you go towards the back of the eye, which is what we're going to mainly focus on, is because that's what can get damaged from high blood glucose, which is the retina. And inside the retina you have the fovea centralis and the macula. And then you have way at the back is your optic nerve, which allows your brain and your eyes to communicate so that you can see all these different things. So with this comes all the diabetic retinopathy, which can lead to, which I will explain too, is glaucoma and macular edema. So I will explain what diabetic retinopathy is. I do have some notes here. Again, I'm not a medical professional, but I will do my best to explain these things. And sometimes it's nice to hear these things from somebody other than a medical professional, because I'm trying to use diagrams and kind of explain things in a way that might make a little bit more sense. So, what is the basic definition of diabetic retinopathy? Well, diabetic retinopathy is the damage to the blood vessels of the light-sensitive tissue of the eye called the retina. So that would be this, all this part that's lined back in here that I kind of have colored in red. As you can see, I have the retina labeled in red. And oftentimes, people that have retinopathy to begin with aren't going to experience any symptoms. They're not going to notice any changes in vision, or they're not going to feel any different kind of thing. But eventually, as the retinopathy gets worse and worse and worse and worse, they're going to start experiencing a lot of different symptoms. Their vision might be blurry. Their ability to see color could be damaged, or, you know, the colors might seem muted to them. They might look out into the open and see all these dark spots in their eyes where, like, you see almost like pitch black, like it's night. They might have vision loss where they literally can't see out of one side of the eye or the other side of the eye. Or they might have little spots and little flecks, which are known as floaters. Again, everybody's going to go through different things if they experience retinopathy. I do not have retinopathy. I had my first fully dilated eye exam about 2 months after I was diagnosed, and I do not have any damage to my eyes, so I'm very thankful for that. So my heart goes out to you if you have diabetic retinopathy. I'm sure it is not the most fun thing to deal with in the world, because honestly, our eyes are so important in us being able to see and perceive and just enjoy life in general. So if that is becoming damaged, that is no fun to deal with. So what causes these damage to the blood vessels in the back of the eye or the retina? Well, again, caused by high blood sugars. So what happens is those high blood sugars end up blocking all the different blood vessels that are in your retina. So what happens is they can become blocked, and then your eyes go, well, I have blocked blood vessels, I need to make more, right? So you'll start growing all these new different blood vessels. But the problem is with growing those new blood vessels is they're not as good as the first set you've had. They kind of are a little bit weaker, or they're just not as strong as they may have been. And they don't develop properly so that they can actually leak blood. And it can actually leak blood into that vitreous humor, which I had talked about, which is that jelly-like part of the eye that gives the eye shape and gives the eye the fullness that it has to sit inside the eye sockets. So if that becomes damaged, it can get scarred. And the scarring and the scarring and the scarring could eventually allow your retina to become detached from your optic nerve. And that you don't want. Because if your retina becomes detached from your optic nerve, you're not going to be able to see, because the eyes cannot communicate with the brain to be able to tell what is going on. So you're not going to be able to see anything. You're not going to be able to take in the light, and it's not going to be communicated to the brain. So if you damage the retina, you're going to lose connection to the optic nerve, which won't allow you to see anything because that communication key has been cut. And you can see as I go further, a lot of the things that are damaged with diabetes are all the things that allow everything to connect together with the senses. And another thing that can happen is you can get high eye pressure. Now, high eye pressure is caused from all that blood kind of leaking into that jelly-like vitreous humor that gives that eye shape. If that happens, it can damage the optic nerve as well, which can result in the first arrow here, glaucoma. They typically, I don't know if you guys have ever had the dilated eye exam, but when they give you the numbing solution and they send that bluish kind of laser in your eye, well, that's actually what is measuring the eye pressure in each eye. They want to make sure that that number or that ratio is normal so that they can eliminate glaucoma off the list. If that eye pressure was high, they would probably be worried that you had some sort of damage to the retina, which would have caused a bunch of leaking into the eye and caused high eye pressure, which means that you would have glaucoma. Now, glaucoma can lead to blindness too. So, and the last thing I'm going to talk about with the eyes is the second bullet on this list, which is called macular edema. Now, macular edema is caused by too much fluid and blood inside the macula from the damaged blood vessels in the retina. So if you go looking back at here, you have the retina, which is like this thing highlighted in red, kind of what I'm eliminating right now. So I'm kind of just eliminating it so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And then sitting back here where the light actually directs itself is at the fovea. And in the fovea there's your macula, and that's what directly gets that light. Well, if this retina has so much damage to it and is so scarred from all these different new growths of blood vessels, well, you're going to have an issue, and it's going to turn around and it's going to damage the macula. Now, all this blood leaks into the vitreous humor, but it might not have anywhere else to go, so it might leak backwards into the macula, causing the macula to swell. That's what edema means. The macula will literally swell, and that can cause your ability to, and don't think I'm smiling because it's not a pretty thing, but it can cause your whole entire vision to be distorted also, because if the macula is completely damaged, you're not going to have light that focuses directly back at that, so that the communication to the brain isn't as much there as it was. So it's not good to have any type of eye problems or diabetic retinopathies. So basically speaking, it is caused by damage to the blood vessels in the retina, as a recap of what I just said to you, and it can either leak forward into the vitreous humor, or it can leak backwards into the macula, causing swelling either in the vitreous humor, which causes glaucoma, or backwards into the macula, which causes the macula to swell and can cause blindness and vision loss and the edema in the back of the eye. So that's everything I know and can kind of explain about the eyes. So now we're going to turn and move right into the other two parts, which are neuropathy and nephropathy. So I'm going to flip this board around, so please don't mind as I do this. Now, I might have to bring you guys a little closer here because this isn't exactly the best angle. Maybe I can just bring this closer. There we go. Go down a little bit. Yeah, I'll do that. So I'm going to talk about the neuropathy first, which has everything to do with your nerve cell. So right here I have drawn a picture of the nerve cell, and the nerves, they're the big communicators in your whole entire body. They allow your body to send chemical messages so that you can move your hands, touch your face, pick up devices, feel things, feel hot, feel cold. There's motor neurons and sensory neurons that allow you to sense temperature, allow you to feel things, allow you to grab things and move your appendages per se. Now, this whole entire neuron is just an example of what one neuron looks like. They're not really connected, but they do lie next to one another and they communicate. So this part of the neuron is called the dendrite, these kind of little spiky parts here next to this main body cell called the soma. This part receives the chemical message. Once the message is received, it goes down the dendrites into the body, to the nucleus. The nucleus sends it down this axon. And from the axon, it goes to the terminals, the axon terminals, which then send the new message to the next neuron, and then the dendrites go down to the axon terminal again. So it's like literally like a chain of events. So it's like dendrite, axon terminal, repeat. Dendrite, axon terminal, repeat. So that's kind of how a nerve works. Now, what kind of happens if you have super high blood sugars? As you can see, I have glucose named here in blue. This is, or in purple. So if glucose is normal leveled, as much as normal level as possible, there's not going to be damage to nerves. But if this glucose gets so out of control, and we have it here and 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 here, and it goes everywhere and everywhere and everywhere, well, it's going to kind of slow down or damage the ability for the signal to travel as well across these nerves. So if the signal gets cut off or can't go from dendrite to axon terminal and repeat to the next nerve cell, you're going to have these different symptoms that are going to tell you that something's wrong with the communications between the nerves. So first, people might have pain or numbness in their hands, their feet, or appendages. So you're going to just feel like almost like that pins and needles sensation. You might not be able to, touch and feel like the details of things as well. You might not be able to hold things as well, that kind of thing. And that, again, that starts in your appendages, such as your hands and feet, but if it gets worse and worse, it can lead to problems in the bladder, digestion, and eventually your heart rate, because the nerve cells allow you to communicate with every organ in your body. So first it'll start off with the appendages, but then it'll move to the nerves that are more autonomic, meaning that they are controlled by, they control themselves, whereas like the voluntary stuff, like for me to pick up my Dexcom receiver, that's voluntary. But for my heart to beat and my bladder to work and my digestive system to work, those nerves are all working without me even to think about it. Those nerves become damaged, you can have problems maintaining a good heart rate, which can mess with your blood pressure and the blood vessels in your heart. Digestion, you might have an issue with emptying your stomach or digesting if the vagus nerve or that autonomic nerve gets damaged, which is called gastroparesis. Or you could have problems controlling your bladder, which your bladder could, you could end up spilling your urine when you don't want to, or incontinence and those kind of things. But the type of neuropathy that would happen with this type of stuff would be called autonomic, because those nerves are automatic. The stuff that would happen with like the pain or numbness and tingling in like your appendages would be called peripheral neuropathy. Because those are towards the sides of your body and the things that you can control, but the autonomic stuff all in your core for your heart and all your other internal organs, those will get damaged after the peripheral nerves are damaged. So we want to avoid this as much as possible. And the final thing I'm going to talk about is diabetic nephropathy, which has everything to do with your kidneys. So I'm going to move this up so that you can see. I have it resting kind of on my knee, but here we go. This is a diagram of the kidney. So here you have an adrenal gland, which that helps control blood pressure, and it's a stress hormone that is released when you get excited. It's the fight or flight thing. Not really important here, but I just put them on top because these do rest on top of your kidneys. As you could tell, these are your kidneys. This is your ureter, which is how the urine travels from the kidney down into the bladder, and the bladder and the urethra. So that's the basic anatomy of the kidney. So inside your kidney, there are millions and millions of filtration units that allow your body to filter the waste and the toxins out of your blood. That is your kidney's function, is to take your blood and filter it for all the junk that you don't need. So with diabetic nephropathy, what happens is those get damaged. These filtration units each have a glomerulus and a tubule, each one of these. And if those become damaged, they can't filter your blood properly, meaning that all these different things are going to be spilling into your urine. And most particularly, what's going to spill into your urine is a protein that you don't want to spill out in your urine called albumin. Albumin should be staying in your blood because that is a healthy protein that your body uses to rebuild cells and keep things healthy and maintained. So if that level becomes too high, if the protein levels become way too high, that's an indicator for any doctor that there's problems with the kidneys. I had a microalbumin sample. My ratio from the microalbumin to the waste product is low. It's like 3.7, and they say anything above 30 is considered a problem, but mine's way under that, so I don't have any major kidney damage. My kidneys are healthy, so I'm very thankful that I caught my ketoacidosis and my diabetes in time. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you guys. So what else can cause this damage to the filtration units besides high blood glucose? High blood glucose obviously is going to cause damage to this because, again, those blood vessels are going to get kind of clogged. They're going to try to regenerate, or they're going to get so clogged it's going to damage and kill off all their nutrients, so that all these different little units are going to end up dying, and they're not going to be able to do their job properly. The other thing that can cause it is high blood pressure. If you're having so much pressure inside of your blood vessels, all that force can damage those inside linings of your blood vessels, which can also wreak havoc on your filtration units. These are the major complications that can happen with someone with diabetes type 1 or type 2. There's a lot I didn't mention here, but basically the combination between all these three different major complications has everything to do with damage to either the communication between cells, like the nerves, or there's damage to blood vessels, which allow them to kind of not be able to receive the nutrients they need, and therefore those cells begin to die off or become damaged. Other things that can happen include like cardiovascular damage that has everything again to do with your blood vessels. If your blood vessels become scarred or clogged, they're not going to work as well, which could lead to heart attacks and strokes and so on and so forth. So I apologize, this video was kind of long, but this was interesting for me to rather explain this to you guys, and I hope this made sense to you. If it did, give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on the little notification bell down in the lower right hand corner. Comment down below if you have experienced any type of complications from diabetes. I wanted to briefly mention too that if you are experiencing diabetic complications, or you feel like that you're going through a diabetic burnout where you don't feel like you can continue to move forward in treating your diabetes, please feel free to message me on Beyond Type 1. I am willing to talk to you. Trust me, there are some days, me being only 4 months in, where it's hard as hell to check my blood sugars and so on and so forth, but sometimes it's so hard to see when you feel like you've got something blocking your face, but you kind of got to look for the future. Like for me, what keeps me motivated is to stay healthy for my family and friends, obviously for myself, because I want a family in the future. I want to be married. I want to have children in the future, so I want to stay as healthy as possible for them. I want to feel good and have a good, long, healthy life as much as possible with diabetes. So again, if you feel like you need to talk to somebody, please feel free to message me on Beyond Type 1. I'll help you through some things. I think we all kind of know what it feels like to be tired and burnt out from dealing with type 1 diabetes. It is a job that we cannot get rid of. It is a job that we cannot stop with. So again, feel free to message me. My heart goes out to you if any of you go through any of these diabetic complications that I have mentioned or maybe not have mentioned. Know that I am praying for you, that things either stay the way they are, things reverse, or you can get things under control and things don't go really, really bad, and that you don't regress. Know that I am praying for you and I think about you, because we're all in this together. Thanks for being a community with me. Thank you so much for those of you that have interacted with me thus far. Thanks to those of you that have helped me through different things. On Beyond Type 1, I feel like I'm learning a lot of different things from you guys, and I think you guys are learning from me too, which is the beauty of the community of type 1 diabetes, those of us that do live with it. And I wanted to mention here too, if you get me to 100 subscribers, we're at about 34 right now, or 35, so if you get me to 100 subscribers, I will do a diagnosis story. I will post my diagnosis story. It'll be long, not super long, not like 35 minutes, but it'll be long and detailed, so that you guys get to know exactly kind of what led up to my diagnosis and how I became to come to realize that I do have type 1 diabetes, and how I was diagnosed 4 months ago. So again, get me to 100 subscribers and I will do that. And I also wanted to mention, to all the things I talked about in this video, I will leave links down below to all the different resources I used, all the websites, so that you can further do your own research and kind of read more in depth about what I had talked about. I just touched on the surface, but there's so much more that goes with that. So thanks so much for watching. Be kind, spread positivity, be thankful. God bless, and I will see you tomorrow for day 20 of Diabetes Awareness Month. Bye, everybody.